And good evening. Welcome to the University of Dubuque football show on this Monday night after game one for the UD Spartans on their schedule. A trip to Wisconsin Whitewater. And it turned out to be a 42-7 loss to the number 3 team in the country this week, according to D3Football.com. They were number 4 when the Spartans rolled into town, but a very impressive football team, as we knew the Spartans would face this past Saturday. So we're going to talk about that with head coach Stan Zwiefel, homecoming for Coach Zwiefel of sorts, and unfortunately the guests weren't very welcoming from Whitewater, as it was a pretty good win for them. The Spartans had some opportunities, but just wasn't to be, and they knew it was going to be a tough go, and that's, of course, why Coach puts them on the schedule. They're a tough opponent, gets them ready for American Rivers Conference action. One more non-conference game before that ARC schedule gets underway. For the rest of the season, that's the home opener coming up this Saturday night under the lights. That's always fun at Chalmers Field, as the Spartans will welcome in the Pacific Boxers from Foreston, Oregon, I believe.
Forest Grove, yeah.
Forest Grove, Forest Grove, Oregon, and this will be the 6th meeting between the teams. The Spartans have won the 5 previous, but they have not been easy games. They have been tight ball games. I was looking back, and 3 of the 5 have been decided by less than a touchdown, and the other 2 were close and could have went either way at some stretches of that game. So we're going to talk about the Spartans' next opponent. So we've got that to talk about as well for the next half hour as we talk University of Dubuque football here on this Monday night inside the Mercer Birmingham building, where Coach Zwiefel's office. And if you want to watch us do the program, we're on Facebook, the University of Dubuque's Facebook page, carrying the broadcast on their Facebook page using Facebook Live. And thanks for tuning in here to 101.1 The River. And also, again, as Mike Bumgardner said at the top of the program, thanks to our sponsors, the University of Dubuque, also Conlin Construction, for making this broadcast possible this evening. So we'll come back, and we'll be joined by head coach Stan Zwiefel to talk about the Warhawks of Wisconsin Whitewater, the Spartans' opponents last Saturday when we return. This is UD Spartan Football, the University of Dubuque football show, back after this on 101.1 The River. And we're back inside the coaching offices of head coach Stan Zwiefel here on the University of Dubuque campus for our UD football show. And Coach Zwiefel joins us right now. And Coach went back to Whitewater, back to your roots, and the Warhawks got after you a little bit there. A 42-7 final, as you knew going in. You almost had to play a perfect game to beat the Warhawks, but you had some bright spots in the ball game. We'll talk about those.
Sure.
But just a pretty impressive opponent you played, no doubt about it, this past Saturday. Yeah,
we had spoken on our last show, Tim. We thought we had to play, mistake-free, and perfect. I don't know if perfect is mistake-free, but mistake-free is mistake-free assignments, alignments, and of course you can't make mistakes in turning the football over. And we gave them 2 short fields to start the first quarter out. Had a bad snap that one of our punters had that they got about at the 35, 38-yard line. Then we had a block punt that was really precipitated by the snap. But, with that being said, they're a good football team, and we knew they were a good football team. I just really felt that we put our defense in such a precarious position in the first quarter. Even though they scored 14, our defense had played so much, and they were starting to wear out a little bit because they're a big physical group on offense, their offensive line specifically, and 3 running backs that will probably start for most of the football teams in the country in Division III, and then their defensive line and linebackers, big, physical, run well, and they don't play a scheme that you don't know where they're at. You know where they're at. The problem is you got to block them, and I thought we had a very difficult time, Tim, getting our run game going. And as the game proceeded, we had a very difficult time to do anything other than passing. I was super excited when I got back and had a chance to watch the game tape on Saturday night. What a nice job our offensive line did pass protecting against a really good front four. A good front four as we'll see all year, and that includes if you make the playoffs. That's one of the top 2 teams front four in America right now. And I think they're a better football team when we played them Saturday than they were a year ago, and that's a team that went to the semifinals. So I really think they're going to be a very formidable opponent in the WIAC.
Well, the Spartans, of course, you knew were going to have your hands full, and as you mentioned, those costly mistakes early. And Jim Cloran and I were talking about it, and he's a former coach. He gets into statistics, and and he said, anytime you have a punt blocked, it's tough to win, and the statistics prove that out. It doesn't matter what point of the game it happens; it makes it tough.
Yeah, Jim's exactly right. The percentages that we've done in college football is 87% of the time you lose, you get a blocked punt. And in the NFL, it's even higher. It's such a momentum changer. It's a free touchdown for your opponent. There's no more downer in the world than having a punt blocked. Got to overcome that stuff. We weren't able to on Saturday. Hopefully we'll learn from that. We did take a look at how they blocked our punt. It wasn't necessarily schematically as much was technique. So I think that is a correctable error for us on our punt team. As you mentioned, we had some real bright spots. I talked about the offensive line pass protecting. I thought our defense was able to bring pressure with a 4-man rush, as well as hitting home with some blitzes against a real quality opponent. So we got some hurries on their quarterback. We got some sacks on their quarterback. And I thought we just really played very, very good, hard football. But we got worn out as the game progressed along, Tim. And then, also I thought our receivers, had we been able to run the ball a little bit more, we might have been able to get a little bit more going in the passing game. A.J. Hunter hadn't practiced all week and came in and had a pretty good game. And Cody Reimer's a really good weapon for us. I had mentioned to you, Tim, before, as I was talking to you and Jim before the show started, I was a little bit upset we didn't get the ball to Adam Rothas a little bit more, our tight end. We have to get him involved in our passing game. He's a really big weapon that we weren't able to utilize on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit more about the defensive effort. You mentioned that your defense was on the field more than you wanted them to be. Whitewater ran 90 plays, 439 yards. But to the defense's credit, it's 439 yards, but the amount of plays and what they were able to do, they were able to hold them to field goal opportunities, which you were fortunate they missed on all of those, but also a couple of times they turned it over on fourth down attempts.
Tim, when you have that short field, it doesn't always necessarily show up right then and there. Where it shows up is 90 plays. That's too many plays for your defense to run. And I think our first 4 possessions, maybe our first 5, were 3 and out. So you're putting a lot of stress on your defense, just the amount of time they're on there, but also the length of the field that they have to defend. The good news, Tim, from this game is I think there are correctable errors that you can always learn from. And the other good news is we ain't playing Whitewater next week. So that's dang good news. We're playing a really good Pacific team, which we'll talk about in the second half, but it's not Whitewater. And when I took this contract on 2 years ago and we played these guys, we knew it's going to be difficult. But, Tim, since I've been here, we're playing a WIA school, we're playing an MIAC school, we're playing a Northwest. We're playing people that are going to be national playoff football teams. And when you're playing them, hey, you're going to play a damn good team. So you got to play well. You got to execute on all your special teams, and you can't give those things up. Now, we can't do anything about those, what happened Saturday, but we sure as hell can make correctable errors, which we will do. But again, if you're going to play a good football team, you got to come out and play good yourself.
Let's talk about the Spartans' touchdown drive. They're right before halftime. You were down 21-0, still a ball game, and then it really felt like you maybe turned the tide a little bit because you got that nice 6-play, 66-yard drive, a 40-yard touchdown pass from Sean Duffy to A.J. Hunter that put you on the scoreboard, and talk about that success you experienced.
Yeah, there's 2 things that happened in that game. We get back to 21-7, and we go in the half with a little bit of momentum. We gave up a little bit too much on the ensuing kickoff, but we were able to keep them out of the end zone. And so we felt like, okay, you got a chance if you're in the game, and we were going to kick off. And the biggest play in that game, other than the punt mistakes that we made, it was 21-7 on a 3rd and 19 after we got them on a hold call. And we got in a cover 3 situation, and they ran a skinny post by number 2 on one of our substitutions, a true freshman playing in this game because one of our secondary guys needed a breather. And they hit that thing to make it 28-7. And that really kind of really took any air that we had coming out of halftime on that, Tim. But when I say that is, you still got to respond and try to get back and within, make it 28-14 if you could. And their defense was just too darn good. We had a number of some nice drives, but either had a penalty or something happening. I always say when you're playing a good team, when they start to get ahead of you, holy cow, you got to hang on. You got to be that much more precise in how you do it. You can't lose your technique, and more than anything else, can't panic. And I thought after that 28-7, we were in a mode that we didn't want to be. We had to throw it almost every down, and couldn't feature Dwayne Allen like we wanted to. But boy, in the first half, they took Dwayne Allen away from us also.
They sure did, but you could see, flashes of Dwayne, and then your new backer, Cordell Stillmunkus. He got around the corner there that time.
He's got some great speed.
You could see what kind of weapons you've got.
We do. And I just felt like we weren't able to let them all out just because of the nature of how the football game went. But got to take this as a learning curve, for us. And, the old cliche in coaching, which, I've been doing a long dang time. Jim's been doing a long time. You like to see most improvement from game 1 to game 2. And we're hoping that's going to be true this week. And I think, obviously the opponent we're playing is a very competitive opponent for us. But it's not going to be an opponent that we have to play a perfect game to stay on the field with. And I think we'll play better in those areas that we've talked about here previously. And I think we'll play a really good football game this coming Saturday against Pacific.
Like we said, it was a 21-7 game at halftime, so you're still in this ballgame. And then they didn't score again until about 4 minutes left to go in the third quarter. Yep. So you're right in this game. What did you talk about at halftime?
We try to make adjustments at halftime. Tim, what you really try to do is make it as unemotional as you possibly can. I get together with the defensive staff and visit about what we think they're doing well and what their tendencies are. And boy, I thought we did a great job of really having an idea what they're trying to do to attack us. And you can really, in the first half, we were able to, after the first 2 possessions, we got a really good handle about where they were throwing the ball out of their 3-by-1s and some formations. Done bore everybody, but we really did a nice job. That was part of our success defensively in that first half. In the second half, I felt they were going to feature their backs because I told our defense, man, oh man, I hope they don't run that ball every down because they are really good when they run the ball. 3 physical backs, our real physical offensive line, and they kind of settled into that a little bit in the start of the second half, which I thought was probably a good move. And then offensively, we're trying to find some way to run the ball if we can. And if it stays 21-7, and we might score 24, you can stay within that game plan. But that touchdown to me at 28-7 didn't have a lot of time left, Tim, in that point to try to run the ball because we weren't very effective at running the ball at that time.
Well, my first trip to Perkins Stadium and the Whitewater campus, and you can just feel the tradition.
Yeah,
there.
Can't
it's
you?
Really quite a place.
Yeah, you get there and there's 10,000 people there for a Division III game, and that's a great experience for our kids, Tim.
Yes,
that's going to help us when we go to Wartburg. That's going to help us when we go to Central. Those are experiences that you can't get if you're not playing that type of competition. And, we've replaced next year's schedule, we replaced Whitewater with La Crosse, who's the up-and-coming team in the WIAC. So, hey, we're going to continue as long as I'm the head coach to play as strong a competition as we can to get a chance to test our football team every chance we get before we get in the American Rivers Conference schedule.
Any final thoughts on Whitewater before we leave week number 1?
I'm going to erase all those thoughts, Tim, for a while. In every loss, there are things that are done correctly and done right, and you sure point those out. And then there are some things that weren't done as good as they should have been or not as we planned. I will say this, and Chad Marsh is our long snapper, and he's our starting Mike Backer. He had played 22 snaps on defense when he made the bad snap. He doesn't want to make a bad snap. No. He's doing that because he's the best long snapper we got. So we're going to continue to work and do those things. But if those are correctable errors, his butt raised up a little bit on the snap that went over the head of that, a little bit fatigued. We'll get that corrected. But I really feel the things that you can take from that game is playing great competition and knowing that you could play with them for part of the game.
All right, well, game one of the books. The Spartans look ahead now to their final non-conference game on their schedule as they'll welcome in the Pacific Boxers from the West Coast coming into Chalmers Field coming up on Saturday night. And so we'll visit about the Boxers and more when we return with head coach Stan Zwiefel. This is the University of Dubuque Football Show, and this is 101.1 The River. And we're back on the University of Dubuque football show. It's a Monday night after game number one, and Chalmers Field is going to be rocking on Saturday night as the Spartans have their home opener. They'll welcome the Pacific Boxers, and the Spartans have it under the lights, a 6 o'clock ball game. And so you can watch that Cy-Hawk game and have plenty of time to get over and watch the Spartans play over here at Chalmers Field. Make it a real football Saturday afternoon and support them as they take on the Boxers. 6 o'clock start. And, Coach, we chronicled it at the start of the program. This is the sixth meeting between the teams. You're 5-0 against them, but 3 have been decided by less than a touchdown. You won 21-10 last year, but that game was in doubt till late.
I just had a chance to visit with Coach Buckley this morning, just find out when they're getting in and exchange pleasantries. He's really a good person. He came from UC Davis when they restarted the program at Pacific. I believe this is their 10th or 11th year, and he's done a really nice job there and is really one of the coaches that I coach against that I really admire and like. And it's almost like a conference game for us, Tim. It feels like we're playing an opening game of the conference, but they are a team that we've just been very fortunate again, as you mentioned, some of those games. They're very similar to us in many, many respects, Tim. They're very athletic, got a lot of good team speed. They're throwing the ball a little bit more than I thought they were in the first game. That's the first game sample. They got behind, so you can't base a lot on that. They had a terrific year last year, Tim. They finished 4-3 in their league, and really took the two, Whittier and Linfield, the two best teams in that conference, to really close games at the end. They've made some improvement. They feature, I think, the best receiver we'll face this year, number 1, Kobe Williams. I feel like he's been there for all 5 games in year 6. A little kid that's got great speed. You get him on the edge. Tremendous player. And looking at the game film against Chapman, they actually threw it to him 4 consecutive plays, and he made 4 catches. They're trying to get him the ball and get him lathered up like you would a tailback, and he's going to be a really challenge for us. And then defensively, Tim, Jim noticed this last year. They got that 3-3 stack, and, man, I'm not sure where they're lining up. It's really hard to figure out where they're lining up, and they're going to bring – we have, I think, 17 different blitzes that they used against Chapman. So they're coming from every nook and cranny on the field. And the thing you got to be concerned about there is they're going to get you sometimes for a loss. They're going to get a sack. They're going to get a negative play on your run game. You just got to stay sound, and you got to stay you got to have as short a menu, as small as menu on offense you can, and then you got to execute those plays because you're going to get some opportunities. They're athletic. They play extremely hard in all their facets of their special teams. And so I'm sure they'd like to end this series with a win for them. I'm positive of that. And they'll come to town with what I've always felt about those guys. They play with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, and they really play hard.
They've got another all-conference receiver in Ty Hargis back, and they got all their receivers back. They're replacing a quarterback from a year ago. On the defensive side, looks like they had a lot of holes to fill, and Chapman got after him on the ground pretty good.
They did.
Over 400 yards.
Yeah, Chapman really made some big runs, and I think that goes back, Tim, to what we're talking about. They'll hit you in the mouth on 1 or 2 plays, and then if the blitz goes the wrong way, or are you able to stay on a block on the blitz, there's a seam there and a guy can go all the way. I think if you remember last year, I think Dwayne took one 74 or 75 yards.
228 yards in that game.
Yes, on maybe our first series. I can't remember if it was our first or second series, but it was very early in the game. He took one up the middle on just what we're talking about. So we're going in there with a plan to be patient. We still feel we got some great matchups with our wides on their secondary, but they're going to try to get a little bit of heat on your quarterback, so you got to be sound in your protection. You got to be able to pick up blitzes.
as you get ready to begin preparation tomorrow, the day off today to rest up, and you'll get after it tomorrow to prepare for Pacific injury-wise. How's your team setting?
I think we're pretty good. We have a couple guys that are nicked up. We're not sure. Quincy Topla, our starting DN, got a knee to the thigh, and he's got a little bit of a contusion there, and A.J. Hunter got rolled up on his ankle. We don't know if they'll play on Saturday at this early time as we talk on Monday. And, of course, for us, Tim, in our preparation, Sunday is a day that we review the game film of UW-Whitewater, and then we lift and run on Sunday night, get our first lift in of our off-season lift, and we lift twice a week in the off-season, or in season, and then Monday is their day off. And so it's the coaching staff prepping and getting game plans together and getting scouting reports together and getting all that stuff. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll have pretty high level intensity practices. Friday being a kind of a dress rehearsal, and then Saturday, because we have a night game, we will do a walkthrough on Saturday morning. So you get a little bit of extra time preparation when you're home and you got a Saturday night game. And it looks like the weather's going to be marvelous for football, and really like to have a great crowd there. It's going to be a great ball game. It's going to be a close ball game. It's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to be involved in that. And I'm going to be sorry to see that we're not playing Pacific anymore. It's been, like I said, almost like a conference game for us, and it's been a lot of fun playing those guys.
As you said, the forecast looks good for Saturday night. Looks a little rainy this week, so how fortunate are you to have that Veterans Memorial Training Center? And, of course, I don't know if we've ever really chatted about the new weight room here. It's really impressive.
Joe's done such a great job, Joe Clappity, in helping us out, the university and our athletic program. We built that indoor back, 4 years ago now, I think it is. And so we've used that extensively, Tim, probably in the spring more than the fall, just because the way the weather shakes down in the spring. But when we get either, bad weather, high winds or lightning, we've got a place to go practice, which is outstanding. And then this past year ago, we built a weight room addition to it, and
it's unbelievable.
It really is. And what has helped us is, Tim, we can put all our players in there. In the past, we've had to kind of stagger our guys when they lifted, so putting a lot of stress time on our support staff, particularly our weight, our strength training people, and being able to put that in there, we are able to get 75 guys in there at a time, so we're able to put our squad in there in 2 separate sessions and really get a good workout and still use the indoor stretching and doing some cardiovascular work. So it's been unbelievable, Tim, in that way. It's about as Division I as you can get setting for practice, and that'll help in our preparation as we move along, because in October and November you're going to get some bad weather days.
Coach, before we let you go, any final thoughts as you get ready here for Pacific?
Yeah, like I said, I'm concerned about number one. He is really a good player. We got to limit his touches and do everything we can to make it very difficult for him to touch the ball. And then we got to be able to sort through the chaos that they present on defense and not get frustrated if you run 2 plays and you lose a yard or whatever that happens, is because you got to stay patient with what you're going to put together as a game plan. I think we'll have a very good game plan. I think our offensive staff, we had a chance to meet about 6 hours this morning from about 6 to noon and get a chance to look at all the games that we have on them. We have a ton of games on them, Tim. Our 5 previous games and their 3 last games of last season plus Chapman. So from year to year, personnel changes, and you're always trying to identify personnel, but their scheme has stayed pretty much similar to the last 3 years. So we think we're going to have good preparation on that.
Coach, thanks for the time tonight, and we'll look forward to chatting with you right before the ball game on Saturday night, and good luck against the Pacific Boxers.
Looking forward, Tim, and as I said, glad to be home, that's for sure.
All right, so we'll come back. Stan Zriefel joining us tonight here on the University of Dubuque Football Show. We'll put the lid on tonight's program when we come back on 101.1 The River. And we're back here at the coach's office, and we're wrapping up our University of Dubuque football show here for this Monday night. We'll be here again next Monday night, and you can view it on Facebook Live from the University of Dubuque's Facebook page as well. But we'll be on the radio as always, and also on our streaming, 1011theriver.com, and that's where you can listen to road games too. There's a link available on the University of Dubuque's website, but the next 2 games are home here at Chalmers Field, so the video and audio will be available for that from UD's website, but also on the radio. And we'll have the Spartans taking on the Pacific Boxers 5:40 with the pregame show. Jim Caloran joins me for that. And then kickoff at 6 o'clock as the Spartans kick off the home portion of their schedule. So that is going to wrap it up for our program this evening. We'll talk to you Saturday night from Chalmers Field, the University of Dubuque football. I'm Tim Larry on 101.1 The River.